40 minutes of smoke inhalation will kill anybody. That's common sense, Sheila Rosenau told the Daily Beast. So for them to wait 40 minutes, that's not right. That's horrible. In that situation, you got to save a life. You got to go in there. You can't just sit back and wait for them to come out. After police had extracted the boy from the flames, witnesses told Source New Mexico that his body was left in front of the home. Police say Rosenau died of smoke inhalation. R.I.P. Brett Rosenau. The more information that keeps coming out about this story, the more despicable and disgusting the police in Albuquerque. There's, a homicide rate. Nearly 70 people have been killed. So the police, have their hands full. But they got to be right. They got to be right. And so a black teenager had died in a SWAT raid. And here we're seeing that his father had been killed 15 years ago. His father had been killed 15 years ago. So he's 15 years old. So, my God, this is cyclical. His father is killed by police, and then he had asked a couple questions about his father to, I guess apparently he didn't know his father's family, and they told him about what had happened, and they said maybe that's why he didn't come outside, because he was afraid of the police. He heard that the police had killed his father. So, people are making it seem like he ran in to the house with this 27-year-old, and the 27-year-old, they made it seem like he was like, the most notorious, like fucking John Dillinger, goddamn motherfucking Jeffrey goddamn Dahmer, motherfucking, just the worst of the worst, just a goddamn whatever. So Sheila Rosenau, the boy's aunt, said in an interview that the death last Thursday of her nephew Brett hit hard. Their relationship had only been rekindled in the last few years after the teen had reached out through Facebook with questions about his father's family. So she was thinking that, okay, he knew that his father was killed by the police, so he was too afraid to come outside. This is disgusting. So basically, he was born in blood, and now he's, ends in blood, and 15 years old. He's forever young. Here's a picture of Brett Rosenau. Brett Rosenau. So R.I.P. to Brett Rosenau. And then the 27-year-old that they said that they were chasing, it turns out all those warrants and all that shit that they were saying, it wasn't as true as it was just a parole violation. It was just a parole violation. So they said that he was, wanted in connection with just taking an AK and shooting at the cops. So like there was something in May and something in June. Somebody got killed in June, and they said, it might have been this 27-year-old. And then in May, they, somebody with an AK or some assault rifle shot at the police and made them all duck down, and then they, drove off. You think it's a poor motherfucker in a goddamn abandoned house? And then they burnt the whole house down. So they fired the smoke bombs in it. And then, he dies of smoke inhalation. They go in and they retrieve his body. And then they just set it outside on the sidewalk. Like, I guess, he's dead. But that's pretty, it's pretty disrespectful. Right? What the fuck, you sons of bitches. That's how you can tell if the cops are good or bad. If a situation occurs and there's no situation, once they've arrested that 27-year-old, it's like when they shoot a person, a black person, or, white people get killed too. When they shoot a person dead and then they turn them over and they, make sure they arrest them. You just turn them over, motherfucker. So now it's an open wound. It's like, I need to help you bleed on out. Now we need to go ahead and get all that blood out of you. No, you need to put pressure on the wound, and you need to give medical. If you're a good fucking person, immediately you would go into, life-saving mode. Once the threat has been neutralized, then you go into life-saving mode. Now you're a fucking human, right? Okay, take it down a notch. Are you a human? Was that what you were trying to fucking do? Kill a 15-year-old that had nothing to do with nothing? Well, were they smoking weed in a motherfucking abandoned building? That's not something to get murdered for. I'm more afraid of, a fucking gang going around killing people for smoking weed. And it's legal now in New Mexico. Marijuana is legal now. So the article here, sourcenewm.com, the story gets thicker. The tale goes thicker. So APD was mistaken about a federal warrant. So the 27-year-old is this fucking guy named Kelly. some guy named Kelly, Quiant, Q-I-A-U-N-T, Kelly, K-E-L-L-E-Y. So you had Police Chief Harold Medina that said at a news conference after the 15-year-old, after Brett was killed by the SWAT team, after Brett was killed by Harold Medina and, his team, his side, Tim Keller's side. Tim Keller's the mayor. So saying that Quiant Kelly had some felony warrants, one from the state level and one from the federal level. So that's a sentence that kept getting repeated over and over again. Not only did he have some federal warrants, they also said that he was wanted for questioning in these other incidents. So far, he hasn't been charged with, being connected with those other incidents. And that sentence had some felony warrants. Bullshit. One from the state level, kinda. One from the federal level, bullshit. So felony warrants, no felony warrants at all. Just one warrant from the state level is a probation violation. Probation violation. So when they were making it sound like there was two active warrants, it wasn't plural, just singular, warrant. And then a probation violation isn't a felony. It's not a felony. So, it was originally for a felony carjacking, but, the probation violation could be a number of things, right? He failed the drug test. He didn't clock in to his probation officer, a number of things. So the probation officer, so there was one warrant out for his arrest, but there wasn't any federal warrants. So why are we going, we're going above and beyond. Anytime there's a tragedy that happens in the community, the police have to go above and beyond and say, oh my God, this Quiant Kelly, he was just a terrible menace to society. He was just, and in fact, since it was a probation violation, they didn't have to do any of the shit that they did. They didn't have to do the smoke bombs. They didn't have to do the, SWAT team. They didn't have to just be patient. You could have had one police officer just sit outside and wait for one or the other one to walk on out. And in fact, the guy tried to turn himself in. It looked like they said he opened the back door up and then he comes out and he lays on the ground on his back. And then the probation violation, right? They said there was something, the federal thing, this article basically debunks it. It said the federal probation violation for carjacking, KRQE and KOB uncritically repeated this false information. A search of federal court records over the past month by source in New Mexico shows no federal warrants were issued against Kelly or any property associated with him. So they signed a warrant for Kelly's arrest saying he had violated 5 conditions of his parole on March 21st. So there was a warrant. So we're not saying that there wasn't a warrant, but since this 15-year-old had got killed and then they took, Kelly and they arrested Kelly. So Kelly lives, but this 15-year-old bystander, essentially an innocent bystander, that was just playing basketball and I guess was at his fucking goddamn, I don't know what the relationship was, but I'm going to, the most generous you could say is total innocent bystander. And then the worst you could say is that, they were in there smoking some weed. I think, I don't know that he's got a gentle demeanor. So he's like petting a bird, petting a puppy. No, that's not a criminal. I want more people petting birds and petting puppies. And I want less motherfuckers in, cop uniforms and badges and hats killing people. I want less murders and more puppy petters. Less puppy killers, more puppy petters. So they're saying it's not a felony and it wasn't warrants. It was a singular warrant. So not a felony, not a warrant, no felony warrant, just a state warrant, a singular state warrant. And then they had tried to connect, there was that spraying with the AK and then somebody got shot and killed and somehow it's, they're trying to put it on Kelly, and, I'm not saying that it's not it, but an accusation does not make a crime. It does not. You need more than just an accusation, right? Thou shalt not bear false witness. You got to have evidence. You got to have evidence. So, Albuquerque Police Detective Eric Enzel used arrest warrant as part of his reasoning to ask 2nd Judicial District Judge Britt M. Baca Miller for a search warrant, giving the police legal authority to search the house where they found Kelly and 15-year-old Brett Rosenau. 2 cars parked in the driveway. 2 cars are parked in the driveway. That house looked like it was all boarded up, so it's kind of crazy that there was even a single car. So there's no federal warrant. They said they were under the impression that there was a warrant, but they said there was an investigation, but it didn't result in a warrant. So they had to back up now with all that they're saying. There's protest. And they're right. This is a situation where they want the person to look as bad as they possibly can, right? To try to justify or mitigate, try to reduce the harm, right? They're going into PR taken by the APD that night. I'm not saying that this is the case, but it's a thing that happens. Yeah. No, that's Baron Jones is correct. Senior policy strategist at the ACLU of New Mexico. I like this Baron Jones. There's another article. The story's getting traction. So, independent investigation sold in the death of a 15-year-old, and then Albuquerque police investigate threat to the mother of the 15-year-old fire victim. So they're saying that people are now, threatening her. They're investigating a shooting at the mother's house. They spoke in APD detectives earlier when a friend of her son, an adult man, came to her home. The two demanded she returns a dog that fled a residence that her son shared with a friend. Friend of her son, an adult man, you need to give us that dog back. The two fired gunshots as they left the house. Whose dog is it? That fled a residence. Was it her son's dog or was it their dog? It fled the residence that her son shared with the friend. Then the two fired gunshots as they left the house. APD responded to her call on safety concern, putting a periodic watch on the home. That's a great idea. Because that's Jesus fuck. Like she hasn't gone through enough. Let her have the goddamn dog. And if it's, I don't know. If she just took the damn dog, okay. But if he's got any sort of claim, any tiny claim to it. And really, who domesticated it? That dog loves, one over the other. So really, let the dog choose. Let the dog choose. Isn't that what Judge Judy did? Just set the dog down on the ground and then see who it goes running to. Kelly barricaded himself in his home in southeast Albuquerque along with Rosenau. That was actually a good Judge Judy. APD used tear gas to get Kelly to exit the house. A fire ignited in the house that left Brett Rosenau dead from smoke inhalation. Our effort to track down and arrest a violent criminal. Young person tragically lost their life. Medina said, I know many people in our community are hurting right now. Appreciates everyone's patience while the incident is thoroughly investigated. If any of our actions inadvertently contributed to his death, we will take steps to ensure this never happens again. Kelly was able to exit the house, fire with burn injuries. He was arrested after being taken to the hospital to treat his burns. And then independent investigation, yeah, definitely. You would want to, that's the Albuquerque Journal is saying that the independent investigation is salt. Protesters are angry. I got to answer this firewall question. Okay, so the firewall is preventing me from knowing more details, but that's some more information on R.I.P. Brett Rosenau. R.I.P.